Hi students, welcome to English class. Today we are going to talk about dialogue writing. So by the end of this lesson, you'll be able to understand the essential components of dialogue writing. You'll be able to apply those rules of dialogue writing in your real life, and you can write a dialogue on any given topic. So before we start, what actually dialogue is a conversation in a story or in real life situation, and when something is said aloud. Okay, it is the repetition of the actual words. Okay, this is what actually dialogue is. But written dialogue is different from the spoken one. Okay, now there are certain rules that we do follow while writing a dialogue, especially when adding up a dialogue in the text, in the story, or in our speech. Rule number one is, if you can see, rule number one is use quotation marks around the word someone is saying. Now you can see in this example, get to work, Mrs. Huff screamed. Now see, get to work, these are the exact words said by Mrs. Huff. She screamed or she shouted. Now, and this is the continuation, what she said more, your rough draft is due Monday. You have to complete your given task by Monday. Now see, whatever she has said, it is written in inverted commas. So this is rule number one. When you are adding up a dialogue in your text, in your story, or in your answer. Rule number two, periods and commas go inside quotation marks. Now periods and commas, if you are using a comma or periods mean full stop. Now get to work. Now get to work after this comma, because see, reporting speech and the reported speech both are separated with the help of comma. It's not like that first you close the inverted commas and then you put in the comma. No, first you have to put in the comma and then you are going to close the inverted commas. And your rough draft is due on Monday. Here see, you have used full stop, so full stop also comes before the inverted comma. So this is rule number two. Rule number three is indent. Start a new paragraph every time you change the speaker. Yes, every new line of the dialogue, you write it on the next line. You cannot start from the same line. As you can see over here, this is a major grade, said Mrs. Huff through gritted teeth. Okay, now see, this is spoken by Mrs. Huff. Now, whatever is said by someone else, we know Johnny said, rolling his eyes in the typical teenage fashion. Her students were finally settling down to work, no doubt crafting masterpieces. Now see, this is the first part of the dialogue which is said by Mrs. Huff, and this is the second part of the dialogue which is said by Johnny. Don't forget your rough draft is due Monday. Now see, again this is said by Mrs. Huff. Now if there are two speakers in the conversation, so whatever each speaker says, it would be written on the separate lines. You cannot write down both the dialogues on the same lines. This rule number three, indenting, though indenting we don't follow in written dialogue. This I'll discuss when I'll give you the sample. But in story writing or when you are adding up dialogues, indenting is actually when you leave the space of one word, one whole word, or one or two words. Now over here, if you see gritted teeth, where this line has ended up, you have left the, when you start the new line, this is known as indenting, when you leave the space of one word. Now here you have left the space where through is written and you have started your new line just below gritted. So this is known as indenting. Now here is the sample dialogue that you are asked to write down in examination. It can be a dialogue between two friends on the choice of profession. It can be a dialogue between a teacher and a student on any issue. It can be a dialogue between a tailor and the customer, or shopkeeper and the customer. So here is an example, and this is an incomplete one. Afterwards, you can complete it yourself. Now, This is the format that you need to follow in your examination. Okay. Now the dialogue is between Asad and Umar, two boys. Asad. Now this is the punctuation that you need to keep in mind. After each name, you are going to put in colon. These two dots are known as colon. After each name, you are going to put this punctuation mark. Then you are leaving the space of one word and you are writing the sentence. Now what Asad says? Asad says, hello dear, how are you? And see how the sentence is punctuated. Now in dialogue writing between two people, you don't need to put inverted commas. Okay, you need to put in inverted commas only when you are adding up a quotation in your speech or in your answers. In your exams, where you are given a proper question about a dialogue between two friends, you don't need to add up only, sorry, you don't need to add up quotation marks. So that is the difference. Okay, now here rest of the punctuation marks you'll keep in mind. Hello, exclamation. Then after exclamation, you remember, if you remember the rules of punctuating, after exclamation, the next word starts with the capital letter. Dear, how are you? Now after dear, again there is comma because this is a greeting. Okay, and since this is a question, you'll end it up with the question mark. And what Umar says, I'm fine, what about you? This what's will not come. Okay, what about you? What is about you is also correct, but if you can avoid, better. Okay, what about you? I'm fine, and what about you? Asad in response, he says again. Now see, each line is written. Now whatever is said by both of them is written separately. You cannot start from the same line. What Asad said, it is written on the separate line, and what Umar said, it is written on the separate line. So this is how you frame sentences in dialogue writing. And then again, Asad, once the first person says something, the other person replies. And this is how your dialogue goes on. Asad says, I'm also fine. Where have you been as we have met after a long time? And Umar replies, I went abroad after taking the BA exams. And Asad replies, very nice. Do you know when the result is being announced? Omar, I hope that by tomorrow the result will be announced. And then Asad says, so what is your program after passing the BA exam? So how the conversation develops. Omar, my intention is to be lawyer after doing BA. And Asad says, very well. Why do you like to be a lawyer? Now see, here you can add up few more sentences till you reach the end. And your dialogue should not be more than 8 sets. 8 sets mean 16 lines. Okay, 8 sets. Now see, this is first set. Okay, this is set number 1. Okay, first set means whatever is said by one person and how the other person replies. So this is first set. Now this is second set, this is third set, and this is fourth set, and this fifth set is incomplete because Asad, whatever he has asked, Omar has not yet replied. Okay, so the ending part should conclude. Okay, here I have another dialogue which will give you an idea. Now if you look at this one, this is between a student and teacher. Student says, may I come in, sir? And this is question, and teacher says, yes, and stand here. Why do you always come late? This is very common situation in your real life also. Okay, many students are habitual of coming late. So, sir, it is the bus which makes me late. And teacher says, what time do you? Now see over here, though we haven't left the space of one word, but it is recommended. It is highly recommended that you leave the space of one word to give it a nice look. Okay. What time do you leave home? Student says, I always leave home at 7:45. And then teacher asks, how far is? Now see how uh, uh, the dialogues are related to each other. How the question, it relates to the next question, and how the answer, it gives the chance to the person to ask another question. Okay, and it is necessary that you are only asking the question. So this dialogue will help you how to start the dialogue and how to end up the dialogue. Now see, if you look at the last part, the teacher says, no problem, you can walk along the street in the morning time, take breakfast at right time, and then leave for school. And the student says, you are right, sir, from tomorrow I shall never be late. And teacher says, good. Now see, here the problem is resolved. One thing more, keep in mind, regularity and punctuality conquer the mountains. Now here this teacher gives the life lesson to the student, that how important it is to be regular and punctual in your life. And what is the answer of the student? Thank you very much for your good advice. Can I sit now, sir? And teacher says, oh yes, of course. Okay, this is actually the student. Okay, this is the student, not A. If you don't want to give name, you can write down A, B also, but here S is for student and T is for teacher. This A is not A, actually it is S, student. Okay, so student in the end says thanks to the teacher for the advice, and teacher also resolves the matter and he allows the student to sit down in the class. So this was all about dialogue writing, punctuation and rules. Hopefully you would have understood. Thank you so much for listening.